If your heart is pulling you towards that question of, am I a psychic medium and how do I go deeper into this? I really invite you to go down that rabbit hole, because we are not just here as human beings in a 3D reality. We are literally multi-dimensional beings, and there's so much more to us when it comes to past lives, galactic lineages, what we have already within our DNA. And if you're being called, you're being called for a reason. Hi, and welcome back to my channel, Awaken with Victoria Bond. I'm Victoria, and I'm super excited to go into this mysterious and interesting topic of psychic mediumship. So, question for you is, have you ever asked the question, am I a psychic medium? If you have, you are not alone, because millions of other people are asking that question right now. So I cannot wait to go through this masterclass with you and also share a very special story that comes from my heart about how I found out I was a psychic medium. Before we jump into this masterclass, I just want to go through a little bit about what a psychic medium is, and I want to make it really, really basic. So a psychic medium is a person who can bridge the gap between this 3D reality and the spirit world. This is something, practice that has been brought through in so many cultures for so many centuries. So it's not like it's something new. It's something that has been around forever. So let's go through some of the signs that will show you whether you are a psychic medium. These are very, very common, and I just want to go through them with you because quite often it is these simple signs that we do not put two and two together, which is actually what shows us that we are a psychic medium. So, number one is heightened intuition. So, have you ever had a gut feeling that something is not quite right, or someone is going to ring you and then they do ring you? This is a part of being human, right? And we are essentially, we've all got these abilities. But I just want you for a moment to look into that sign. When have you had a heightened intuition, and when did you follow that intuition, and when were you correct with that? So the second sign is vivid dreams and messages. So this is really, really cool, because so many people come to me and they're like, I had these predictions. I literally had a dream about seeing this person or this accident or whatever, and it came true. So that is kind of the extremes of that. But the other part of that is having a vivid dream, and the feelings that are in that dream really equate to what's going on in your life. So this is definitely a sign of being a psychic medium. The third one is sensing a presence or an energy around you. So this is that whole scenario of you're walking down the street and it's like you nearly feel like there is eyes on you, or you feel like you're walking with somebody. It can be, another example is feeling like a relative, like your granddad, feeling their essence around. And this can be in the form of nearly smelling them, nearly seeing them, but it's really apparent that their energy is around you. Definitely a psychic medium if you sense that. Number 4 is hearing voices or messages. So a lot of people think to be clairaudient, you literally have to hear a voice like I'm talking to you, like it's external. But this is not usually the case. It certainly can be the case. One of my sisters does hear externally from herself, so she can hear a baby crying or a woman speaking in a different language, and there's nobody around, there's nobody in her house type of thing. So it can happen, but more than likely it's common that you are hearing yourself speaking, but you're like, that's interesting, where did that come from? So our guides can often talk to us, and spirits can talk to us with our own voices, if that makes sense. So messages can come through us very deliberately, and if you were like, wow, I talk to myself a lot. Like I walk around talking and answering myself. Definitely a sign that you're a psychic medium. Okay, so number 5, strong empathy and emotional sensitivity. So this is one of my favorites because I am an empath, and all it takes is for me to be in somebody else's presence, even a spirit's presence, to feel their emotions. I can get goosebumps. I can feel overly emotional myself, yet I am not emotional. I am mirroring the other. So this is the strong empathic gift that many of us have, and sometimes we switch it off. But if you're tapping into your psychic mediumship skills and asking, am I a psychic medium? You're probably going to be feeling some type of deep empathy or emotional sensitivity. So a lot of people that feel like I'm really like up and down and I feel all these emotions are quite often empathing on the collective or the people around them. Number 6, sudden and unexplained knowing. So this is about being claircognizant, right? So you just know things, but there's no logical explanation. And it's just like it drops in, and it might be the most random question, and you've got an answer for it. And someone goes, how did you know that? And you're like, I actually don't know. So that's one way. Or another way is you just know. You just have this innate wisdom. And one of my other sister, actually, she's really interesting because ever since a little girl, she has been told she is an old soul. So the wisdom that comes with this sign, if you're a psychic medium, is that you just know things like you're an old soul, or things pop in and you're like, I don't think that's a good idea. Maybe you don't do that. So it can be absolutely sudden, or it can be more like this deep wisdom and this innate knowing. Okay, so do any of those resonate with you? I'm going to tell you a little story about how all of this came about for me. So, when I was at school, there was a girl called Emma, and beautiful girl. She was an acquaintance of mine, and she passed away way too young. She passed away around her 21st birthday. I think it was just before. But the long story short was, I know her mum and her brother. We all just happened to move to a town and all got to know each other. It was quite bizarre. But what happened was Emma was showing up in my dreams. I could feel her presence. She was showing me butterflies, and she was showing me feathers, and I knew things like baby pink was her favorite color. She showed me so many things. I was tapping into all of my different senses, and I could feel the feelings when it was coming up to an anniversary or Christmas or her mum's birthday. And I'd get this urge to want to go buy her mum something. And I had no idea there was an anniversary or anything. And, this was at the beginning of my journey. So I was kind of like, am I a psychic medium? Or am I crazy? Okay, so a lot of people do ask these questions because we're not taught about our intuitive abilities or our superpowers. So going back to the story, one day I'd been asking, am I a psychic medium? Am I a psychic medium? Or am I crazy? Give me more signs. And I started getting really overtaken with signs. So I walked into a room and there was feathers everywhere. Like someone was having a huge big feather pillow fight. Everywhere I walked, I went for a walk with my friend, and there was monarch butterflies like on letterboxes, like paintings landing on me, like swirling around me. I was like, am I in a fairy tale? I'm going nuts. There was monarch butterflies everywhere. People would send me emojis of monarch butterflies, all the types of things. So I was like, oh my goodness. I had these, like I said, these gut knowings, these urges to reach out to Emma's mum, who was my client at the time because I was a hairdresser. I had these urges to reach out to Emma's sister-in-law, who she had never met because she had died really young, but she was my friend. I had urges to check in on, her husband and her son, which was Emma's brother and nephew, like absolute urges. I would ring her up and tell her something about her husband or her nephew. It was crazy. And she's like, how did you know that? So I was basically psychic as but I didn't know what to do with it. I thought I was on the verge of having a mental breakdown. So one day I just said, enough, enough. And I just want to emphasize the story is not about like showcasing how psychic I am, but it's really about saying when you start getting on this going into this cycle of bringing in the psychic mediumship, it's really important to understand how to center yourself within this and how to hold the power. So that's why I want to do this masterclass for you. So I said, help me, what is going on? Like, show me. And I was literally bombarded with all of this. And I was like, this is enough. This is totally enough. So I reached out to Emma's sister-in-law and I said, this has been happening. This has been happening. This has been happening. This has been happening. I feel like I really need to reach out to Emma's mum, but I don't want to create any kind of pain, right? Losing a child must be the hardest thing in the world. And she said, Victoria, you have to. There's just too much going on. I said, 3 more signs today. And then I will do what Emma is asking me to do. So I said, I gotta go. I just got a message and I've got to like see the message, whatever it was, right? And it was from a client. So I had to go. And it was from a girl called Emma wanting to get her hair done. That was the first sign. She had the same name. And I was like, that's too weird. I went, fine, that's one sign. And then I was like, look, I've got to go get ready for work. I was a little bit of a tiz, as you can imagine, when you feel like your life is crumbling and you may end up in a mental hospital. And I went and saw my husband. I said, I've got to go to the shop to get some milk before work. He said, sure. Now I went and I parked in the most weirdest place that I didn't just go directly to the shop. I had to walk like past shops to get the milk that I wanted. And all of a sudden I heard stop really, really loud in my head. So I stopped and I looked into this furniture shop that I'd stopped in front of. And what I noticed was a single duvet over a bed, because it was in a furniture shop. It was baby pink and it had monarch butterflies all over it. I nearly dropped my phone. I was like, oh my God, I think I voice messaged my friend and said, oh my God, you are not going to believe this. Sign 2. I was like, that's crazy. And then as I was walking past another shop, I literally was told, go into the shop. What? Why would I go into this Hammer Hardware? It was like a hardware shop, right? And I lived in a little village, so there was literally half a dozen shops altogether. So I walk in there and I see this little angel. And it's got these, I think it's holding a little bunch of flowers. It was tiny. It was this tiny little angel. And I'd been pulled into shops like over the last month. And there's all these little cute little angels in there, these random shops. And they kept basically saying, buy me, buy me. And I was like, okay, I'm losing my mind. So I was like, fine, you want me to buy you? Oh my gosh, okay. If I've got the right amount of change in my wallet, and I never had money then, I used to be so broke, I will buy this. And I knew it was Emma. And she had been saying to me, like, I want you to give a gift to my mum. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I don't know, like, I'm not crazy. This is crazy. So I bought the little angel and I scurried out of the shop and I was like, this is insane. There was like 3 signs, really, really strong. And like, it was crazy. And like a song had been playing, an angel song. I think it was from Robbie Williams, like over and over and over and over, as well as the butterflies, as well as the feathers, as well as knowing about the light pink and the needing to reach out to the mum. So the long story short is, I was like, oh my God, I got the 3 signs. I have to stick to my promise. So I said, I'm going to ring your mum. This stage, I'm talking out loud. So I'm going to ring your mum. And if your mum happens to be free to come and see me this morning, or whenever it was, like sometime today, I will tell her. So I ring her up and I go, hey, how's it going? She's like, hey, Victoria. And I was like, yeah, just wondering if I could chat to you. Are you free? Are you free to come over for 15 minutes sometime, today type of thing. I made it like a really kind of short time frame. And she said, oh, actually, I'm kind of busy. I'm going to be going into town. And I said, don't worry. It's all good. No worries. It's doesn't even matter. And I was like, yes, it didn't work. Right? I don't have to tell her anything. She said, you know what, actually, if you're available now, I could pop over for 15 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, that works in with my client. That works in with my family. My jaw dropped and I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no, what have I done by going down this am I a psychic medium path? So I kept my word. I went home and I said to my husband, can you take the babies into the other room, because Emma's mum is going to come over and have a cup of tea? And he said, what is happening? And I go, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I hadn't told my husband anything. I was just this random, like, oh, this is all these things are happening. And he was like, Victoria, tell me. And I was like, no, because you'll stop me and I don't want to be stopped because I have to do this thing. And he goes, tell me. And I told him everything. And he said to me, well, that makes a whole lot more sense than you just wanting to give her presents all the time. Like, I had gone to her house a couple of times and popped like random presents by her door and said, love Victoria. But really I wanted to write love Emma, but that would have been too kind of creepy. So he said, that makes sense. She came over and I said, you might want to sit down. And I told her everything. And at the very end of it, I said to her, this is a gift. And this time I can't put my name on it. It's from Emma. It's not from me. That's when she burst out crying and she said to me, this angel means everything to me. And her friends at school used to call her Angel. She had massive angel wings in her bedroom. Now, of course, she was my acquaintance, so I didn't know people called her Angel, and I think it was at a previous school. But anyhow, her favorite color was baby pink. She always wore a baby pink cap. And yeah, like monarch butterflies were huge. And all of a sudden, Emma just came through me and I started saying, what a she is saying is. And this was because of all the voices in my head. I realized they weren't my voices, they were Emma's. I was able to connect a mother and a daughter together. And I was absolutely petrified. I was shaking. I was afraid I was going to get locked up, and I was afraid I was going to hurt somebody, really hurt them, because we're not meant to mess with people. We don't want to give the wrong information out. And it was because of Emma that I was able to, it was a bit rough. I didn't have the mentorship. I didn't know the fundamentals. I was brought up Catholic, right? I was just like, I'm crazy. And all of these signs I gave you are all really simple signs, but that's how it begins. And of course, with the fundamentals, with the teachings of those who have been in those shoes, we can create something beautiful with boundaries and standards. So let's get into the next part of this. So one of the key aspects about being a psychic medium is being able to receive messages from the spirit world. So this is really about tuning into your intuition. And just like the story that I shared with you about Emma, it really is about having a whole lot of faith in yourself. So having a really strong integrity and trusting that you are as authentic as you possibly can be, and being grounded is one of the biggest tips that I have for people, because with me, I wasn't very grounded. I was busy being busy in this kind of like burnout mode of I haven't slept. I had little children that were really terrible sleepers. I was anxious. I was, drinking wine at night to cool down, drinking coffee to warm up. And I had spirit coming in and out. And, I wasn't very grounded. So grounding is absolutely key when it comes to being a psychic medium. But because being a psychic medium, we have to step into this 5D reality, we are kind of in this dimension which is not physical. So when we go to places like in meditation, or when we're tapping into our psychic abilities, it's nearly like, and when we're sleeping, when we're dreaming, it's nearly like we're lifting out of our body. So it's super important to put in grounding exercises, not to make you small, but to connect you in to the earth. So, how can you develop your abilities? So, for me, it was very much, the top tip I would say would be meditation. So, for me, I started putting in a practice of meditation every day. And I can hear some of you now saying, I can't meditate. I find it too hard. I've got a lot of mind chatter, which most psychic mediums, so many of them have that issue, including me. I was in like an insomniac because even when my babies were sleeping, I had massive amounts of mind chatter. I didn't realize that was not just a busy brain. Of course it was, but it was also spirit trying to talk to me because I was asking, am I a psychic medium? So meditating 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, however long as you want. Now, I was a busy mom and I had a business, so I only managed like 7 minutes a day, probably for the first year. So I would just get a chakra balancing meditation off YouTube, and that was a non-negotiable. So meditation for me, getting that rest in, and if I fell asleep for an hour, if I managed to have some time in between clients or whatever, that was an extra bonus for me. So if you have that kind of like, oh, but I fall asleep, don't worry about it because it's still going into the subconscious. Meditation is key. Like I said, whether it's 10, 20 minutes or a couple of hours, even if you go to sleep. Now, if you are busy and you have your 9 to 5 and you've got all the things going on in your life, there is no reason why you can't train yourself to sleep to a guided meditation. And this is something that I have been doing for absolute years, where I'm listening to this beautiful kind of white noise or, the waves. And I've got somebody that I trust in the meditation. So find your favorite type of thing, giving me suggestions about myself and happiness and joy and what I want to manifest, or whatever the theme is that you like. So another tip is something that I resisted for so long, like so long. I'm like, I do not have time for that. And it's simply journaling. So I invested about a year ago in like a really expensive journal. I was always like a $10 journal girl. And then I would kind of be like, oh my God, this is boring. Why am I journaling? But I invested in a really expensive one because that's how much I value journaling now. My coach, she told me a long, long time ago, years ago, she said, you need a journal. I was like, nah, not the way that I roll. And one of the things that really helped me to unlock my psychic mediumship was to get what was in my head out on paper, whether that was about relationships or finances or mostly feelings. For me, I was able to write it out, and I have written literally dozens of journals now, and I like burn them. I don't actually keep them. I kind of like burn them. I'll keep one or two every now and then so I can like look back and go, wow, I've come so far over the years. But I love it as like a sacred practice, like a spiritual practice, to get out my journal and write some questions down and answer those questions. So I literally, my favorite way to journal is I write down like, what am I feeling? What am I manifesting? What's going on for me? What are my shadows at the moment? Just hypothetically giving you some there. And then I answer my own questions, or I can pull some oracle cards and then kind of spend some time in the spiritual practice. Now, there's so many different ways that you can journal. So it could be just like Dear Diary, or you could ask the questions, or you can literally just draw and scribble. And this is where sometimes the channels come out. So light language can come out. So it might just look like a whole lot of scribbles, and you look at it afterwards and go, whoa, that's like another language. Or channels like literally, it could be Mary Magdalene, or it could be your higher self coming through, or it could be a guide. And as you start writing, it's nearly like you stop thinking, and what is coming through can be from the subconscious, or it can be literally you being a channel. So there's so many possibilities when it comes to journaling. So that is something that I do put into my spiritual practice. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be every day. Just like I said, 7-minute meditation, make it a non-negotiable. For me, I journal like at least every week, sometimes 3 times a day, sometimes pages on end, sometimes just a sentence. I just go with how I feel with that, but I do make it a practice because I know my channeling abilities of being a psychic medium really come through when I'm doing journaling. Okay, and of course, the third tip is practicing. And this is how we develop our skills. So one of the things that I do is I started off with one oracle deck, and I really loved the big ones because they're really intricate. So I really love the Dorian Virtue, the tarot decks, but there's so many different types of oracle cards and tarot decks that you can get. And the way that I work with them, and this is honestly one of the biggest things that I did along with the meditation and the journaling, was I just started playing with cards. I would pull them out. I'd pull myself a card. I would say to a sister or Luke or a friend or even a client, because I was hairdressing and I had a lot of spiritual clients that were being attracted to me. So they were like teaching me along the way. Let's get out the cards and let's just play. So this is the third tip, is playing. You need to be able to play. And this is one of the downfalls that I had, is I took it all so seriously. I was like, well, if you give me some more signs, and oh my God, I can't be doing that. And what if I ruin her life? And what if I ruin my life? And what if I get rejected from my family and my peers? Because, this isn't normal behavior. So I wish I could go back to myself 7 years ago and say, hey, you know what? Play, play, because this is what life is about, because life is too short. So you can get out your cards, and this is a thing that I really like to do. I'll share this with you real quick. Is I get out the cards. I now have like literally a ton of different cards. Often I'll give away a deck. I like to get a new deck, and I see it like a new best friend. So I really spend time connecting into the cards. I will carry a deck of cards around in my handbag for like a week. I will literally sleep with them next to my bed. I will take them from room to room. And just get to know them. And I like to look at every card and be like, just like real quick, I'm like, hey, like these cards are really pretty. I like to tap in. I like to clear them. This is things that I do in Magnificent Mediumship, my signature program, is I teach these basics as well. And I'm just sharing this with you now, is I hold on to it and I ask for the highest good and the highest frequency beings from the highest realms to bless me and these cards and those who I read for. And I do some other types of kind of prayers and intention setting, and that's kind of individual of what you want up to do. But I tap the cards before I read for somebody, including myself, and I'm like, this is for me type of thing, or this is for the Am I a Psychic Medium masterclass. So I pull out the card, and what I do, I just shuffle until I kind of hear a stop, to be honest. I just stop. It's just a knowing thing, right? You can use any of your clears for that. And I've just pulled out the card, and I look at the card and I read the card, but the main thing is I come from my heart. What is this card saying to me? What is it feeling? And this is for this masterclass. I will just tap into the feelings of what the card is saying. What does it look like? Do any words pop out for me? And I go into that. So it took me a while to discover card reading, because I thought it was like this huge science. And of course, tarot is a bit of a science, but oracle card reading is more intuitive based. So time to act upon your plans. Creativity is rewarded, luxurious or abundant resources. So I'm not going to go into reading the particular card for you today, but what do you see? What do you feel? And of course, bringing cards into your practice every day, your spiritual practice, can make a really big difference. I always say thank you for that card. Thank you, spirit team. Thank you, guides. Thank you, light beings. Thank you to my higher self and those whoever I read for today, and their spirit teams as well. So meditation, journaling, and playing. So playing can come in different forms as well. So obviously we play these games when we're younger. So I don't know about you guys, but I remember when I was about 18 and I had an apprenticeship as a hairdresser. And one of the girls I worked with, we were sitting there having our like morning tea or whatever. And I'd say, let's play a game. Let's play the psychic game. I didn't realize I was actually strengthening my am I psychic mediumship gifts, right? And I would sit there and I'd be like, I see you traveling and I see you with 3 kids and I see you marrying a guy that you traveled with. And I go into this elaborate story and I'm like, I don't see you with the guy you're with now, but I see you with this other guy. And I start really getting into it, like storytelling. And this particular story, this girl said to me a couple of years ago, I think it was like at a wedding or a hen's party, do you remember when we used to play that game? And do you remember how accurate you were? And it's really funny because my nose is getting itchy now, which means for me that spirit is around. So there's physical signs that we can get as well, which is really interesting. So playing is very much in the consciousness of being childlike. And we know that spirits with imaginary friends and all the things, spirits are around children. They're a lot closer, they're a lot more conscious, they're a lot closer to spirit because they're not as conditioned. So that is the 3 little tips. I hope that really helps you, because without those 3 things, I certainly would be probably still asking the question, am I a psychic medium and how do I go about it? So I would love to hear from you if you have had any stories that are kind of similar to what I've shared with you today. I've given you a whole lot of like signs. I've given you some tips on how to enhance your psychic mediumship gifts. So I would love to hear from you. So the comments below are open. So please let me know what your stories are and what the signs are as well. And maybe you want to share with me what is one of those tips that you want to implement in your life, because one thing I know about as a spiritual coach is taking action is massive. And if I hadn't taken action, it can be like a little micro step or it can be a macro step, but all those little micro steps, they make one big kind of macro, right? So I hope that makes sense. For me, if I hadn't have listened to all those little steps, like the feather and the angel and the butterfly and the talking to the sister-in-law and then talking to the mum, and I wouldn't be here today with my signature program, Magnificent Mediumship, or my membership, Spiritual Magnificence, or this masterclass and this YouTube channel. I wouldn't be doing it. It was those little moments, those little micro steps that made such a big difference. So I invite you to let me know, what action are you going to put in today, right now? Are you going to start implementing meditation or journaling or card reading or learning more about yourself, about spirit, about your gifts, maybe going into those signs and like identifying yourself more within them? So pretty much in conclusion, discovering your psychic medium abilities is such a personal and unique journey. So whether you're just curious about this, so maybe you don't want to be a psychic medium who does online readings, maybe it's just like you want to step more into your own consciousness. I always say growing into yourself, remembering who you are. Whatever the reason is, if your heart is pulling you towards that question of, am I a psychic medium and how do I go deeper into this? I really invite you to go down that rabbit hole, because we are not just here as human beings in a 3D reality. We are literally multi-dimensional beings, and there's so much more to us when it comes to past lives, galactic lineages, what we have already within our DNA. And if you're being called, you're being called for a reason. If you have found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please push the subscribe button for Awaken with Victoria Bond, and I will see you guys next time.